Before we jump into episode 78 of Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash, I gotta let you know that the Dank Podstash is officially sponsored by Anarchy Lifting. It's time to get hashtag Boogaloo ready and in fighting shape. Greg Papanikolaou is going to get you there with personalized meal plans, training, group support, and tons of amazing fitness and motivational resources and knowledge, including the Project Sparta Facebook group. You can go to anarchyliftingcoach.com and learn more about Greg's work. And then when you're ready to get signed up and get fit, go to gregpapanikolaou.clickfunnels.com/opt-in and get started on your path to health. I know that's a whole lot to try to type into your address bar right now, but don't worry. Those links are in the description, and Greg is moving over to a much easier to find URL. I'll let you know as soon as he has that ready. I got to say, I was in Project Sparta for a while, lost some weight, got stronger, still continuing my workouts on my own, and loving it. I have a solid foundation built thanks to Greg and Project Sparta. So check out anarchyliftingcoach.com now and get after it. We also have a special offer for our listeners from friend of the show, author and content creator Shane Radliff of Liberty Under Attack Publications. Take 10% off your order by using coupon code DANK10. Just go to libertyunderattack.com. They have books focusing on self-liberation, freedom strategies, solutions, and more. Current books include, but are not limited to, Hashtag Agora, Second Realm Book on Strategy, Ben Stone's Sedition, Subversion, and Sabotage, and Shane's very own Vanu, A Strategy for Self-Liberation. They also offer assistance to new authors throughout the publishing process, including editing, proofreading, formatting for Kindle and paperback, and full-service audiobook productions. That's Liberty Under Attack Publications. Share your story, find your freedom. One more special shout-out to Voluntary Apothecary. Voluntary Apothecary was kind enough to send me a sample care package full of awesome beard care products, including beard oil, mustache wax, combs, and more. You can check out their amazing products at tashtamer.com and voluntaryapothecary.com. Be sure to check the episode description for those links. All right, let's jump into the show with Oldmin of Big Igloo Boys.
Enemy of the state.
An enemy of the state.
Enemy of the state.
Dank Podstash.
You're listening to Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash. Check out thedankpodstash.com to find every episode of the Dank Podstash, links to support the show via our BitBacker and Patreon, Dank Podstash merchandise, and much more. If you'd like to advertise on the Dank Podstash, email us at dankpodstash@gmail.com. We're back for another episode of Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash. I'm joined today by Oldmin of Big Igloo Boys. What's going on, man?
Hey, not much. How about yourself, Nick?
Another day, getting things ready out here on the homestead during all this nonsense that's going on in the world. But today, we're going to go back a little bit in time to a really unfortunate event, and that was the murder of Duncan Lemp, because you're pretty close to that situation,
right.
At least the aftermath of it. And so for listeners who haven't heard about this, Duncan Lemp was shot in his sleep by, I believe, the Potomac, Maryland Police Department, Montgomery County Police Department over there in Maryland.
Montgomery County.
Yep. And there was a supposed high-risk raid, high-risk warrant, kind of red flag deal. And it's really cloudy, and there's a lot of...
Well, what they said was this.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just going to clarify. What they had said was that it was a high-risk no-knock warrant that was issued. But there was, typically when these things are issued, it's due to, say, either gang activity, some kind of genuine threat to the general public. And Duncan had absolutely nothing. I mean, he had, I guess, a record as a minor, but being a minor, that shouldn't have even played into it. And it wasn't a violent record. He had no record as an adult, no, anything of that nature. What I understand it was was a report of, just from another citizen that he had magazines he wasn't supposed to have in the state of Maryland.
Okay. Yeah, and that's something that I hadn't even found on the articles I was going through and preparing for talking about this. The only thing listed that I've seen is that there were 5 firearms in the home, but no reason why he wouldn't be allowed to have them. So I guess having magazines illegal in Maryland.
Legally purchased, legally owned. He wasn't precluded from owning them. The way I understand it, it was similar to New York and California. The capacity mags that he had were just high capacity according to their local legislation.
Right.
Really normal in 47 other states.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, going through the articles and whatnot. Well, people get killed by police unjustly all the time in the U.S. And so let's just talk about why we're kind of focusing on Duncan, because there have been others since then. But it's because of the community that we're in, the Boogaloo community specifically, running Boogaloo pages and things like that. And so this has been taken up by the Boogaloo crowd, the Boogaloo boys, if you will, to see that there's justice had for Duncan Lemp here. And there are rumors as well that I had heard, and I don't know if you can verify whether they're true or not, that Duncan was working on a end-to-end encrypted app for specifically Boogaloo chats.
Yeah, that's the way I understand it. As I understand it, Duncan was extremely gifted as far as being able to work with computers and coding and things of that nature. And he was working on exactly that, end-to-end encryption that would allow, and it would have been available to anybody, not necessarily just the Boog network, but that was what his ultimate goal that he wanted realized, was that it be something that like-minded individuals could get together and speak without having to worry about who was looking over their shoulder.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so the reports that led to the raid of having the higher than legally allowed capacity of magazines, is there any word on who made those reports, or is it just one of those anonymous tips that the police love to use?
Yeah, that's the way I understand it, is that it was anonymously reported information that was actually even 7 or 8 months old. It wasn't as though they were working on a tip they had just gotten within the last week. It was quite old information.
That's weird. And because they're not releasing any of the information or body cam footage yet that I'm aware of, nobody really knows what's going on other than his family, who was in the home, which was his, in the same room was his pregnant girlfriend who was sleeping, was also wounded, and then his parents were there. Was there anybody else in the house?
Yeah, I believe his younger brother was also there, also asleep. And yeah, that's basically exactly the way we're told it happened. And as far as not releasing information, even the attorneys for Duncan's family is requesting that people kind of go easy on requesting the information, just so that they have time to look at it themselves when they're granted the ability to look at it, and just to know that they're actually working on things on their end, that they have specific items that they want to get accomplished as well.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So let's talk about some of the rumors that were floating around and some that were possibly started by the police or other agents of the state in that area. Because I know at first wasn't the media reporting that the house was booby trapped and that's why he was shot in the manner that he was shot?
Yeah, supposedly he had shotgun traps set up behind the door. I haven't seen any diagrams or pictures of what exactly they were supposed to look like, so I can't speak to that, or exactly where they were supposed to have been placed in the house. Myself and a few other guys have kind of, using news footage and real estate pictures from when the house was previously on the market, have kind of put together what we think might have happened. And basically the way the department is making it seem that they came in and went in this direction and did this, it just isn't possible according to the floor plan. There's no way that he could have. He supposedly he had one officer in his sights and was taken down by another one from the other side, which would just be physically impossible. There's one door in and out of the bedroom area. There wasn't alternating entrances to the bedroom area.
Right.
And I haven't been able to.
I was just going to add that a lot of the news articles say that he was shot through a window.
Yeah, and that was one thing that I haven't been able to independently verify as to whether or not one of the exterior windows in what we think would have been his bedroom area. So as I understand it, his bedroom was, like a lot of people do, converted a garage into a bedroom. Mm. If that is the case, then where the garage was, there's no current models for it.
Right.
Not available on the internet anyway. I don't want to be one of those guys that kind of drives by to take pictures of the place. It's maybe a little morbid.
Sure, and leaving some privacy to the family as well right now. So I had previously on our short episodes called the Dank Podstash Hot Tokes, Christopher Ledbetter out of Oklahoma, if I remember correctly, and Christopher has posted a couple things, conversations between him and Duncan during Christopher's incident with the local sheriff's department there, I believe McLeod, Oklahoma. And Duncan was one of the people who was responding to his call for aid. So that's another reason why this is concerning for all of us who are looking to have the safety of numbers through our communication on the internet and whatnot. Is that it seems like they might be targeting people involved in Boogaloo activities.
Well, I mean, speaking from personal experience, I know that again, this is it circumstantial? Yes. Is it coincidental? I can't speak to that. But as a matter of fact, coming home from Duncan's protest, I was followed off and on. I live close to 4 hours away, but off and on through various jurisdictions, I had different unmarked cars behind me. I can't say that every single one of them was working in unison, and I was definitely being tailed by any of them. Mm-hmm. But I know at some point I was. I know that the police that were there were taking pictures of all of us, taking pictures of our licenses. They didn't actually come up our license plates. They didn't actually come up and ask us to identify ourselves. But how hard is it for them to look up who we are by our license plate?
Sure. And speaking of the protest, that's one thing I wanted to ask you about, because it seemed like the cops did their best to stifle that protest. So can you tell us about the protest starting from when you reached out to organize it?
Yeah, they in effect, and sadly so, they in effect did shut it down. It basically, the way Waze and Google have you going there is, if I can remember right, it's, well, we'll just call it Main Street, 123 Main Street. I can't remember the exact address. But they had the complete main entrance blocked off, and they had traffic funneled around to actually behind the building on a side street.
And this was the police department building?
Again, right, the executive building, correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Again, this is one of those things where, can I say with absolute certainty, no, but because at the same time, it was also when everybody was ramping up the stay-at-home orders for COVID. We expected to get harassed over that. They absolutely left us alone over it. But was everything blocked off and were we funneled around to the back of the building? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Just to keep
Could we have gone and stood out?
I guess it would just be a guess that they're trying to keep you out of the public eye then, people seeing this protest. They wanted to keep you out of sight, out of mind.
I think I think it kind of backfired on them because, to be honest, when we came into town, the main street that we went through, because they had it blocked off, there was no traffic on it. And there ended up being quite a bit of traffic on the side street that we were on. I don't know if that's just regular traffic for that area because there was a housing development there. But we still had plenty of traffic. They had the news. One of the local TV stations had their news crew out there. I believe it was NBC. So I can't say for certain that if that was their plan, that it actually worked in their benefit, because we still got plenty of visibility.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good then that you did get visibility, and you were able to speak with Duncan's family when you were there.
Yeah, I was, and spoke with his mother's dad, his aunt, and I guess the family attorney, all great people. I often tell some of the guys that ask about the protest about his family, and I kind of regret the circumstances under which I met his parents, because we're fairly close in age, and they're the type of people that I would enjoy to hang out with on an average day.
Sure. Yeah. What were their thoughts at that time during the protest, seeing people come together for this?
They were absolutely, I don't think floored is the right word, but I guess it was heartwarming for them to see that people were coming as far away as 5 and 6 hours away. There were people that came even farther than me. But yeah, they were very touched, and even though the turnout wasn't as big as we had hoped it would be, they were glad to know that people are kind of taking up his banner across the country, and not letting it go into the night quietly, so to speak.
Sure, absolutely.
And
sorry, go ahead.
Actually, to that end specifically, what one of the things they said was that they had never, even with Duncan having talked to them about, I guess he was very vocal even with them about first, second, amendment rights and so forth. He would still, sorry, I lost track. They had never been very, very active themselves in the 2A community, but because of this, we basically lost one brother and gained a brother and a sister in the community as a result of it.
Sure. And that's interesting too that you mentioned the First and Second Amendment community and all that, because from the news reports, Duncan's last tweet was "The Constitution is dead," but he had been more what seemed like a constitutionalist or kind of big L libertarian party leaning person rather than, say, an anarchist Boogaloo guy like myself.
Right, or myself included. And that's more and more I see just kind of regular, what I guess you or myself would consider a statist, somebody who still believes in even monarchy. I still see tons of libertarians, probably more so now even than when I first got involved with the movement. I see and I hesitate to use right, because that's going to get turned into alt-right, which it's not. But, I see a lot more people on the right and center side of the spectrum that consider themselves voters and supporters of either the Republican Libertarian Party, and even Democrats. If you go on Reddit, there's a great sub called Liberal Gun Owners, and I absolutely love that sub because everybody there is extremely welcoming and very knowledgeable about what they own and their rights, and they're very passionate about it. But I see more and more people like that, regular everyday people that are starting to wake up and realize, hey, our rights are in danger here.
Yeah, I've definitely seen the same thing with I guess, like you said, for lack of a better term, the right. and also Democrats and whatnot, and even some socialists, like the Socialist Rifle Association and whatnot. But as far as Duncan's murder being a catalyst for bringing in more right-leaning people, I had run across an article on theamericans.conservative.com that was scathingly critical of the police and the state in this whole situation. So that could definitely have added fuel to the fire as far as the conservatives are concerned.
Well, until the conservative base as a whole gets motivated to end the red flag whole no-knock process, I don't think there's going to be anything coming from it, at least not anytime soon. You and I can beat our brains out preaching against it, and I think it's going to take more mobilization from the conservative movement as a whole, Republicans included, because from an early age, these people are taught worship the blue line, and I totally get it. I used to be in that party myself. It's been a number of years, but I totally understand how these people feel. And until more of them wake up to what's happening to everyday citizens, not conspiracy theorists, not people that think the government's out to get them, just regular people who get gunned down in their homes, it's going to take something a lot more than what's been happening to change it.
Yeah, it certainly is. And even lumping in saying the conservatives need to, stand against the red flag laws and whatnot. It's all two sides of the same coin as far as Democrats and Republicans, whatever these days it seems. Even better would be if everyone could just step away from that completely, but I understand completely what you're saying as well. But I think
Sure.
that's a good message to push as far as what we're looking for.
Sure, and I don't mean to single conservatives out in that respect at all. Of course, it's going to take, a concerted effort from all sides of the spectrum. I guess the reason I qualify with conservatives is conservatives are more known for supporting, backing the blue, the thin blue line, and all that.
Sure.
Those are all typically conservative movements. And until those movements kind of wake up, it's going to be an uphill battle regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So we need more of those types of people to kind of wake up to what is going on. And I think people are getting there. Like I say, I see more and more of it every day. I think, talking about two-sided coins, I think this COVID response has been a double-sided coin for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely it has. It's state tyranny has increased tenfold and is showing no signs of slowing.
Now picking up steam, if anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a conversation I was having right before we jumped in here was a prediction that we were going to return to some sort of normal, but the state was going to grow even more powerful due to not only the restrictions that they've put in place and that they'll likely keep many of, but all the same people that we're talking about, the thin blue liners and just basically bootlickers, thanking them for everything that they did during this, even though it's a massive blow to everyone's rights.
Oh, sure. Yeah, our civil liberties are back, easy 100 years than that. And you're right. It's going to be, now that they know they have that on us, it's going to be very hard to get it back. It's the old proverbial give them an inch and they take a mile, and they're effectively taking 15, 20 miles now.
Sure. If anything, though, I think the economic impacts of their actions are opening us up to more likely scenarios of unrest in which something like a Boogaloo could happen.
I see that more likely the longer time goes by. Matter of fact, we're talking about the kind of broader impact of what's going on now. We drove down to Virginia this morning to meet family, and about a 3-hour drive one way, there was maybe a total of 11 cars
Mm.
on the whole trip. But, business after business closed due to COVID-19, closed due to coronavirus. And, a lot of these businesses, they were already a month away from shutting up shop completely. And are they going to be able to recover? And small business drives in this nation.
Right.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I don't see a return to normalcy being possible with all the businesses closed and people out of jobs, and just all the devaluation of the dollar as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see hyperinflation, but that's I'm sure everyone's pretty sick of hearing about coronavirus and the impacts. Maybe one question I did have for you too, if we could circle back to Duncan, was what does this say for the rest of us that would consider ourselves boogie boys?
I will be honest. For about a week after this happened, knowing that Duncan was kind of looked at online, knowing that he's not an isolated incident. This has happened to other people of the movement. I will be 100% honest. I got the shotgun out. I laid it down beside the bed. Now, is it beside the bed right now? No, but I know there's fewer restrictions on me getting to it. I've kind of relaxed from that, gone into not necessarily a completely relaxed posture, but I hesitate to say that, to put fear in anybody's heart. I would just say, stay vigilant, stay alert, be aware of your surroundings. Know what's going on around you at all times.
Yeah, absolutely. And also extremely important is remembering to keep communication channels clear as well.
And that is one thing people ask us about a lot. Do we have a group chat set up? And honestly, if we set up a group chat, it would just be utter chaos. What we encourage is finding like-minded individuals in your area, setting up individual cells or, individual units, building a good, strong network locally. And then from there, you springboard towards moving to more nationally. Everybody wants to hurry up and get this into a national movement, and what they're trying to jump to the big picture without taking care of the small picture items that need to be taken care of first.
Sure. And that's building those communities, those small area or small local groups and whatnot, and training and getting together and actually doing training and information sharing and all that together. And I know you and I have come across some good pointers for putting those groups together, so I'll add those in the description of this show. I think it's nerve-wracking for sure, because it seems like incident after incident ever since Whiskey Warrior 556.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that kind of bothers a lot of people is they feel alone. And I guess that would be, another part of my message is that you're not alone. You might be surprised at how many people that think like you are out there. I know I certainly was. I was absolutely floored to find out how many people are within 100 miles of me right now.
Sure.
2 years ago, before I started the page, I would have imagined, a handful. And right now I can think of upwards of 1,000 people, and I can't name them all, of course, but just from interactions throughout the week on the page, there's hundreds of people in my area, and they're not singles, and, they're not Nigerian princes. They're real living human breathing people.
You mean you're telling me you're not recruiting any e-thoughts for your local boot group?
We always recruit e-thoughts. I mean,
I mean more the robots.
You got to keep
the robot scam robots.
Right. I get it. Anything from
Very good.
But yeah, I think it would do a lot of people good to get involved. Make that connection with somebody that's with them locally. Because if a scenario like this, you bring up Whiskey Warrior, there were guys 5 hours and more away mobilizing to get over there to him. Get somebody local that can be there within, say, 10 minutes. We don't want to have to worry about, can we make it there 5 hours away?
Sure. And that's one of the most concerning parts for me about these local groups, or for anybody, myself included, who lives pretty rurally. It would take time for people to get there anyways, but hopefully that means slower response time for any cops or cop backup or anything like that if you've already chosen to live rurally as it is. Not sure how things go in the city because I haven't been in there in quite a while.
No, I can definitely relate there. I moved out about 5 years ago, and I'm slowly inching my way further and further away from it.
Yeah, and it's maybe even a little easier if you do have a rural community around you to get to know people and see if they hold the same views as you, and which, of course, not everyone does, but rural communities definitely lean on each other, I think, a little more than people in cities do. So you might have some luck there, but like we know, be careful with the questions you ask and the people you talk to and who you invite into your circles and your confidence.
Oh, definitely, 100%. And at the same time, it kind of brings me back to not putting too much fear into people's heart. Do be careful of who you speak to, but don't limit who you speak to. Don't, just because a guy has a twitch doesn't mean he's necessarily crazy. He might just have a honest to goodness twitch. So
Sure.
Sometimes they're the funny guys to be around.
Yeah, absolutely. So you had mentioned before about Duncan's, what was it, his lawyer or family requesting that not as much or not too many people be requesting information about the case so that they have a chance to go through it. What can people do to help, if anything, in this situation? Any kind of support or anything like that for Duncan and justice for Duncan?
Not necessarily not request information, just be understanding that it's going to be a little bit of time before it's forthcoming. Because even at this stage, as of, I guess, a week ago, they still hadn't seen the footage. Myself, I'm starting to wonder if it exists. But as far as what people can do for Duncan, I've been in contact with his aunt. I'm going to there's, by her last count, 3 different GoFundMe accounts set up. I know of one that I can say without a doubt is going to the family. She's not as involved because she's not Duncan's parent. So she is going to get with his parents and, get some verified links for me so that I can put them out on the page. And of course, I'll email them to you once I have them, so you include them on your site. But they're going to have legal battles of their own coming up. So whatever we can do to help them in their fight.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely going to take some funding. Anytime you take on the state, it's going to be expensive. So that they could definitely use those help. I'll look forward to getting those links from you. I guess just in general, what else do you see coming from this? And we could even relate this to the current state of things with all the overreach from government right now during coronavirus and COVID. We don't have to be fully silent about it, but I think one of the things I see is this isolation that we're all supposed to be in. That's exactly what they want as far as red flagging and raiding people and whatnot. And
to a degree, that's to kind of build on what I said about, seeing more people than I would even 2 years ago. I think it's backfiring to an extent because it is actually waking people up. Hey, our rights are in danger. You can't open the internet these days without seeing a article from gunrights.com or whoever that formerly liberal capitals that have been banning guns are now surprised that it's not as easy to get them as they said they were. So I think it's kind of a backfiring to an extent on the state as far as people are waking up to it being under control. They're realizing that, hey, this isn't a conspiracy. These guys might not be crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to remind people who are frustrated by this or scared, not able to get a gun, that want to get a gun right now because of the state's restrictions and stuff. When you're talking to people who are saying, oh man, COVID-19 is doing all this, it's like, no, a virus or disease is not doing all this. Government is doing all this for more reasons than just a virus or a disease. We got to point people to get people to assign the blame where it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Oh yeah, most definitely. It's not at all the fault of it. Kind of back to what I said earlier about you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. They've learned that they can take as many miles as they want, and they're doing that exactly right now. You've got the DOJ looking into suspending the Bill of Rights. You've got even the Republican Party here in the state of Pennsylvania. They're trying to make it illegal to buy ammunition online. These are the traditional party of gun support is trying to make it impossible to buy ammunition.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about that. Are they giving any reasons for that?
It's if you're interested in looking it up, I can send you the links.
Sure.
It's I believe his first name is Thomas, Representative Thomas Mert. He's from the Philadelphia side, which I've been here long enough to realize that that's kind of the side of the state that's disowned from Pennsylvania. But Representative Mert, this is his last term in office. He's stated he's not seeking re-election, and his going away party is a ban on internet sales. Not only just a ban on internet sales, but it would make it illegal for me to go to West Virginia or Ohio and buy ammunition. And if I wanted to buy it in Pennsylvania, I would have to apply for a $50 licensing.
Jesus. So
to be able to buy ammunition.
That's another thing that I've been thinking about quite a bit throughout all this, throughout seeing the, from Whiskey Warrior to Christopher Ledbetter to Duncan to all these different incidents. And then on top of that, this coronavirus government overreach, coronavirus response government overreach is, when is it time? Like, we're seeing all these restrictions and all these things coming in, and people are, of course, always making fun of people who identify as, igloo boys, big igloo boys, whatever, and because they're not doing anything. I don't know what to tell those people. It's not up to me to decide when time is, unless it's my personal time. But at what point are people going to start actually standing up for themselves against the state?
And, that is an extremely valid point. We get 5-10 people in the inbox and probably dozens more on comment threads. You guys aren't going to do anything. You guys, just the general put downs that all we are is a bunch of talk. And I'm not here to defend or rebut that, against that type of behavior. But I will say that, clearly, as a movement, we are not ready to. I'll speak to, is it time? When is it time? It's time now. Clearly, we have gotten to a point where we are rapidly losing the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, and now with the Earn It Act, our Fourth and Fifth Amendments are going to be in danger even more so than they already have been, the Trump administration overreach with civil asset forfeiture, and the list goes on and on. So when is it time? The time has already passed, but to that end, we are not ready. We as a movement, we've got no idea how to talk to each other. There's still too much community infighting. But there is a lot of mobilization as far as people making moves to put things in place. We need a solid foundation before we can do anything else. We just don't have that foundation yet, at least in my opinion.
No, I agree completely. The infighting especially, but one thing that is, I think the way I see it kind of happening is that, I don't think Boogaloo boys, anybody, 3%ers, whatever, nobody's going to try to kick it off themselves. It's going to be brought to us by the state.
Yeah, and that is another big point is, who wants to be the martyr? Who wants to be the guy that stands up and pays the ultimate sacrifice? Because that's what it's going to end up being if it happens the way everybody wants it to happen. We still advocate to get out and be vocal and active in your community. As any other good anarchist, I don't believe in voting, and I don't believe in using the systems of the state because the state is violence. Use any of the old cliches you want, but that doesn't mean you can't be active in your community. Get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that end, that just brings more people to the cause who, outside of who you might be already talking to, people who would be ready to stand by you if the state did come after you because you're building community in your local area.
Most definitely. If your neighbors aren't neighbors, if they're not strangers anymore, if you make your neighbors part of your circle, and I'm not saying, go out and get best friends and, become blood brothers with them, but your neighbors should not be strangers. You should have a community within your larger community.
That makes me think
those
of
people, as you said.
Sorry, that makes me think
go ahead.
Another, drawback to this whole, because I don't think that the virus is fake or anything like that. I think it's dangerous to certain groups of people. I always have to lead with that, what's it called? I don't know, disclaimer. But this is definitely stymieing community building. All these restrictions, travel restrictions, and social distancing and all that stuff. It's the perfect opportunity the state has seized. So I'm trying to think of ways that we can be building these, and I'm not really seeing much face-to-face without risking the wrath of the state, because they have their agents out there and all the internet Karens reporting people who they see gathering together and whatnot. Other than gathering in secret, I don't see much else that can be done.
There's still, online social media. There's still online networking. There's still good old fashioned telephone and text messages. Go in your backyard, holler at your neighbor across the fence. Yeah. What they can't see doesn't hurt them.
That's true.
They being the state. If you're hollering at your neighbor across the fence more than 6 feet apart from each other, well, that's social and it's distance. So.
And this, I don't think either of us are saying, obey the state's social distancing mandates, but it's important to take into mind that they will violently enforce those if they can.
Oh yeah, most definitely. There's absolutely no, and the word escapes me right now. There's no affront to the state that the state is not willing to put you to death for.
Yeah, the smallest thing. Yeah, it's been pretty wild, but all right, man. I think that's a good episode. You got anything else about Duncan or anything like that, or you can plug Big Igloo Boys if you want, groups or whatnot, and I'll have links in the description as well. But anything else before we take off?
Yeah, no, we really don't have a group or group chats. Like I said, there's so many people now. Maybe a year ago at this time, I would have done it when there was still only a few hundred people. But we're reaching tens of thousands of people now, and that would just be utter chaos. And that's kind of also goes to why I encourage local small involvement. If we had 10,000 people in a Facebook group, guaranteed there would be feds in there, guaranteed it would be, alphabet boys of every description, one side to the other, checking out what everybody has to see.
Mm-hmm.
If it's 4 or 5 of you in your neighborhood, that's a lot harder to do.
Absolutely. Yes, for sure. But if you do want to share some fun Boogaloo memes and whatnot, and not necessarily get into stuff, info that the feds could use, you can definitely feel free to join us at Boogaloo Vibe Check. It's a group that's starting up right now. Just memes, just good times. So, but hey, Oldmin, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. Love the page. Looking forward to talking to some of your other admins on future episodes as well, like we've discussed.
Yeah, most definitely.
Awesome. Thanks again, and remember, everybody, total freedom, no exceptions. Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash is sponsored by Anarchy Lifting. Go to anarchyliftingcoaching.com to learn more.